Hello, my name is Lauren, and welcome to the Theoretical YouTube channel, one of the top, 100 places to go to get your Disney theories. So while you're taking a break from the Super Carlin Brothers film theory, Seamus Gorman, or whoever else you're subscribed to, let's talk about Ratatouille. You know, the Pixar movie everybody forgets exists. If you haven't seen this movie, I'd say it's one of the strangest underneath Pixar's belt, but let's face it, it's really not. Anyway, Ratatouille is about a rat named Remy who wants to be a chef, but he can't because he's a rat. When he's separated from his family, he ends up in the city of Paris, where he takes an interest in his favorite chef's restaurant, where he meets an awkward guy named Linguini who can't cook at all. Remy fixes a mistake that Linguini made, and the two strike up a partnership. One where Remy helps Linguini cook so that he can work in a restaurant, and Linguini can keep his job. Here's the big question of the video, though. Remy controls Linguini by pulling on his hair like a puppet, and there's no explanation on how that is actually supposed to work. So today we're going to explore whether or not the hair-pulling Ratatouille is actually possible, and whether or not we can actually be controlled by rats. So, are rat overlords our future? Well, to answer that, we first have to analyze how Remy is actually able to move Linguini around. The first attempt they have working together involves Remy running around Linguini's body and biting him to make corrections. That's not exactly the preferred method. Linguini agrees. Then it's discovered that Remy can make his friend move by tugging on his hair. Whatever motions he makes are almost instantly mirrored by Linguini. At first the connection is wild and jerky, but through practice the duo is able to work seamlessly, even mastering fine motor skills, such as using knives, pouring wine, and even cracking an egg. In addition, Linguini mentions that the motions are entirely involuntary.
Whoa! That's strangely involuntary!
Which is later proven when Remy is shown to still be able to control him, even blindfolded and later asleep. Now, immediately my thoughts gravitate towards the idea that it's all a reflex, like the doctor tapping your knee with his little hammer. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, a reflex is an action or movement that is made automatically without thinking as a reaction to a stimulus. In other words, Remy applies a stimulus in terms of a tug on the hair, and Linguini's arms move without him having to think about it. It's a reaction. However, Linguini's motions are overreactions and extremely complex. It's not quite the same as the way your pupils dilate to changes in light. Now, I've heard theories that Linguini must have a medical disorder such as autonomic dysreflexia or hyperreflexia, which causes overreactive reflexes to external stimuli. This disease affects both the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems, which are responsible for hyping you up and calming you down. Like, if you see a bear and you scream, "Ah, a bear!" and then your heart starts racing, adrenaline floods your system, your pupils dilate, your digestion slows, and you might sweat a little. Then you realize it wasn't actually a bear and was really just a small bush. And in addition to feeling a little silly, your heart calms down, your breathing slows, and you return back to normal. Your sympathetic nervous system found an external stimulus in the bear and then caused a series of reflexes to respond appropriately. Your parasympathetic nervous system acts as damage control afterwards and calms you down. There's no longer a threat, and so your body has a different reflex. Autonomic dysreflexia messes up your body's ability to respond naturally, and it can cause anxiety, headaches, a lack of bladder control, high blood pressure, and muscle spasms. Now, muscle spasms sound like what Linguini is experiencing when Remy pulls his hair, but that's not really the case. As mentioned before, Remy is able to practice his puppetry to beyond random spastic levels. Linguini isn't experiencing uncontrolled movement, he's just not the one in control. So even though there is a medical condition that can cause and exaggerate reflexes, it's not the culprit behind our rat overlord's control. So if you thought you were safe because you don't have hyperreflexia, none of us are safe. So, if credible medical sources can't help us, maybe the wide world of pseudoscience can. There's an old popular practice called Phrenology that involves the shape of someone's head and how that determines who they are. It's basically the idea that the weird lumps on your head are just your personality, that someone can read you by just feeling around up here. So the theory here is that Remy is able to pinpoint and apply pressure to areas of Linguini's brain in order to control him. By pulling his hair and triggering different aspects of his personality and character, Remy is guiding Linguini to do actions against his voluntary response. But, as you've already guessed, there's quite a few issues here. First of all, being that phrenology shouldn't actually be able to control your emotions at all. Maybe as a stretch, you could claim that Remy is persuading Linguini based on his personality to somehow choose the correct ingredients, but that doesn't explain how all the puppetry works. As mentioned before, Linguini is not in control of his body. When Remy tugs on a tuft of hair to avoid hitting a tray in the kitchen, that has nothing to do with Linguini as a person. Again, you could say that Remy triggered a response to his friend's sense of self-preservation, arguably a character trait, but that's kind of ridiculous. And how would you explain when Remy makes Linguini hit himself in the head? Well, obviously, Linguini feels as if he truly deserves the pain because in the back of his mind, he feels guilty about lying. That doesn't even make sense. What about when he's asleep? No comment. Anyway, the second and probably definitive point here is that phrenology doesn't even exist. As mentioned before I even started, phrenology is a pseudoscience, meaning fake science. Like palm reading, astrology, and channeling the spirits of the great beyond, phrenology just doesn't work. Bumps on your head are nothing more than imperfections in your skull, and its shape is a result of DNA. So even despite the mechanics of Remy's control in the movie not matching a description of phrenology, it wouldn't work anyway. So I think the case is pretty much closed on this question for now. If modern science in the 19th century can't answer this question for us, then what hope do we have left? It's clear now that we are finally safe from our rat overlords. There just doesn't seem to be a way to control someone by yanking on their hair. So I guess this video is over now. Ha! I knew you'd look at the runtime we still have in this video, but no, we're done now. Seriously guys, half this video is just a black screen. Or this lobster. That seems a little bizarre. I think I'm gonna change it back to black now. And that's how it's going to stay for the rest of this video. Hey, stop scrolling ahead to see if I'm telling the truth. Okay then, fine. I guess if you're still here, there is something else we can talk about. Because here on the Theoretical YouTube channel, we are fans of the show Mythbusters. Because of course we are. And typically when Jamie and Adam busted a popular myth and there was still runtime to pad, things got a little more extreme. Okay, we figured out that ninjas can't catch arrows coming at them. But maybe this robot hand can! Or maybe a stick of dynamite isn't enough to sink a car in a frozen lake. But 24 pounds ought to do the trick! So I guess hair pulling isn't going to control Linguini. But that doesn't mean there isn't another way. One that's actually based in recent scientific developments. One that changes the game entirely. Because phrenology may be fiction, but neuroscience isn't. Your brain works by using electrical pulses, much like a machine. Neurons carry these pulses around the brain in order to do different things. Electricity controls our memories, our cognitive thinking abilities, our temperature, a billion other things, but most importantly, for this video, our movement. So, there's that bear again, and this time we're positive it's a real bear, and so we have to run away. But first, our eyes take in light. Then the brain converts that information into electrical pulses. The pulses then get sent and processed by another part of the brain. Then your brain interprets those pulses as a bear, and then more pulses come up from your memory to remind you that bears eat people. Once we realize we're in danger, more electrical pulses get sent out all over the place. Our nervous system is on fire trying to protect us from the threat that we have just identified. And one of those places that the electricity gets sent to is called the motor cortex, and it's what allows us to move. So then the motor cortex sends out another pulse down your spinal cord and out to your legs so that you can start running. In short, you see a bear and you run, because your brain used electricity to transport information almost instantaneously. Almost as fast as a reflex, but definitely not. So how does this relate to Ratatouille? Well, we've already established that Remy can't pull Linguini's hair to control him. But that doesn't mean that he can't be controlled. The brain works off of electrical pulses, something I've tried to hammer in ad nauseum at this point, just like a machine. And if you can imitate the function of the brain, you can interrupt it. So when Remy sees an ingredient that he wants to add, he can move his arm to grab it. Like the bear, there is a visual stimulus that causes the brain to send out a series of electrical pulses that all do different tasks, but eventually culminate in movement. But if Remy was able to fake an electrical pulse in Linguini's brain that causes him to move, then we'd be experiencing similar results to what we're looking for. Basically, Remy would see, process, and recognize the task that needed to be done, and then shock the different parts of Linguini's brain that could actually accomplish the task. This is mind control. This is the dawn of the rat overlords. But hey, it's all science fiction, right? There's no way we could actually prompt the motor cortex with man-made electricity, right? Right? Unfortunately, that assumption would be wrong. There are studies and experiments that show that cyborg animals such as cockroaches and rats are not only possible, but already a reality. We have created robots that are controlled by the neural networks in a rat's brain. In other words, they're rats without an organic body, proving that the technology required in order to interpret the meaning of the pulses in a rat's brain already exists, and that they can figure out what part of the body they want to move. And there are experiments coming out of Shanghai Jiao Tong University that show students being able to mind control cockroaches with nothing but their thoughts. By hooking up participants to EEG technology, the humans are able to guide the roaches on either S-shaped or zigzagged paths by sending out electrical pulses from their brains to the bugs. Then the electrical signals stimulate the cockroaches' antennae, controlling what paths they took. And to top it all off, the same EEG technology has already been applied to rats by scientists at Harvard University in similar experiments. Humans are first hooked up to the EEG and then asked to concentrate on moving a rat's tail in a circular motion. Then the machine interprets the action and translates it into a series of electrical pulses that are then sent off to the rat's brain. The pulses stimulate the part of the rat's brain that controls its tail. In other words, a section of its motor cortex. The rat's brain interprets the signals and then sends out its own down its spinal cord and into the rat's tail. And the tail begins to move in a circular motion. And of course, this is humans controlling rats, but it could definitely be the other way around. If Ratatouille is what we're basing our experiments after, then Remy is definitely a different type of animal than the rats we have in real life. He clearly has a cognitive ability similar to that of a human's, something that real rats don't possess. Given the same opportunity and technology, Remy could potentially control Linguini by just thinking about it. In fact, this idea is strengthened by the fact that we see Linguini mirroring the motions that Remy has already made. Remy is just sending out electrical pulses that translate into movement, something his brain is already doing in order to function itself. Actually, check out where the motor cortex is located on a human brain. Right below where Remy is yanking on Linguini's hair. But obviously, that's not what the movie is showing. Sure, this is all possible, but clearly the pair is not wearing matching EEG headsets. Although, you have to admit, that would be pretty cute. And it's made abundantly clear that it's the hair pulling that controls Linguini. It's not sort of any electricity at all. So although no one can say that we didn't try, there's just no way to prove that the hair-pulling science behind Ratatouille really exists. I guess we're safe from the rat overlords once and for all. Well, at least until they discover our EEG technology and take it over for themselves. But hey, if you like this video, why don't you give us a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Okay, let's see. Ring the bell icon, share this video with your friends, comment something either slightly depressing or really sweet. Click this box to watch a playlist of theories and this box to watch something else. That's pretty much it. That list gets longer and longer every time. Anyway, thanks for watching and we'll see you later.
I killed a man with this thumb.